Hey everyone, welcome to the next episode of MSP Business School. I'm Brian Doyle, and with me today, as always, I've got Rob Rogers and Tim McNeil. How you guys doing today?
Good.
Doing well, sir. Doing well. How are you doing today?
I am doing fantastic, man.
Yeah.
We are getting, it's the end of the summer as we're recording this, and we're starting to
Yes.
see the people vacate my house. So that's
Yeah.
always a good time for
Which
me.
is a fantastic thing.
I love
I
them
have three
all.
daughters who are going back to school, and I love it.
Yeah.
Yep, love them all, but I love them after 5.
I want to miss them fondly.
Yeah. From a distance.
I could
During the
use a
day.
little absence makes the heart grow fonder.
That's right.
That's
That's
right. But we got a good one today. Today's going to be one of our roundtables, and we're going to have a little bit of a discussion today around sales comp plans and account management comp plans. One of the biggest questions, and I'm sure you guys get them too, especially in your role, Tim and Rob, versus me as virtual sales managers. But even I hear all the time, what is a good comp plan? What should I be paying my salespeople? What is the right split between guarantee and non-guaranteed income, right? And, how can we make sure we're profitable doing this and attracting good talent too, right? So, I figure maybe we can have a little conversation today about, some of the factors that go into building a comp plan. And, dollars and cents obviously change by region, but, what are some of the splits, and where should you start, and where is the absolute floor, and maybe what's the difference between what you're paying an SDR versus somebody that's kind of playing a hybrid role where they're hunting and killing, you know what I mean? So
Yeah. Tim, you want to lead this one?
I throw the floor to you,
Yeah.
Tim.
Yeah. So to that point that you just followed up with, there's a lead gen person, there's a hybrid person, and the hybrid is what we tend to on a day in day basis. And then there's the SDRs, who they tend to be the closers, right? SDRs also tend to have a little bit higher base salary on average. Regional specific, you can get away with a base salary in the 45 to 50 range, but we also do it a little differently, right? So most MSPs, that they come in with a base salary, then they have a bonus, then they have a commission structure on top of that. So what I would say is, if you're an MSP and you're looking to get a salesperson, some really easy ways to figure out what a base salary range is in your area. And generally there's a range of anywhere from $10,000 to $15,000. So let's say the base salary range is between 45 to 55 in any given area. We actually recommend going a little bit closer to the 45, but then, because we want to hold salespeople accountable, we also recommend doing a bonus structure, which is based on his sales activity points. So if they average a certain amount of sales activity points per month, they'll get an extra $500 bonus, which is an extra $6,000 a year, which then puts them into the middle ground of whatever that salary range is for that base. And then on top of that, as they start closing business, there's different trains of thought. One, I would say our business coach, Sean Walsh, who we've had on here before, he probably has the best answer out of anybody. And that is, if you can't figure out, if a salesperson closes a deal and they can't figure out within about 5 seconds roughly what their commission is going to be, it's probably too complicated. So that's kind of what we adopt, and depends on the year or on the length of the contract. But we recommend a multiple of a month, depending on how many years the contract is.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, what you're saying is, if it was like a 1-year contract and it was for $3,000, $3,000 might be their commission. If it's a 2-year contract, they'll get 6, probably broken up somehow, right? And
we break it up for cash flow, but it really depends on the MSP, right? So if you're an MSP and you're out there throwing out 1-year evergreen contracts, then the rep really can't go to that second year and third year and things like that. So in that case, they get one month's multiple. Right. So if it's a $3,000 a month contract, they get $3,000. However, if it's an MSP that their standard contract is 2 years, then the 1 month multiple is set at that 2 years, and then actually lose a little bit of money by going down to a 1 year. The rep does, right? So there's a 25% reduction on that. So if you have to work your way down to a 1 year contract, the company has to, make a little bit more money because they're going to have to redo it again in 12 months. And it takes about 9 months sometimes to, fully realize your ROI on your first time hire.
Let's use $4,000 as a benchmark. If I'm hearing you correctly, they'll make $4,000 if they sell a 2 year. Is that payable both in year 1, year 2?
It's payable in year 1. It pays for a 2 year contract is paid in 1 year. And we usually split it out over a 3-month period for them to offboard that client and onboard the onboarding team.
Okay. And then part 2 on that is you said then a 25% hit. So really, if I'm selling a $4,000 contract, I'm only getting hit for $1,000 if I only get 1 year, and I'm still making 3.
That's correct.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting because
just real quick, it's to force the rep to stick with the 2 years, right? Because the first thing the rep does is when a prospect pushes back is they say, I don't want to sign a 2 year agreement. And if there's no skin in the game for the rep, he immediately goes, no problem. Let's drop that paper down to 1 year.
So that certainly makes sense. I think where I'm going to play a little devil's advocate here is the 1 year still too rich? And the reason I say that is you could see if the customer, a sales rep's in a really tough negotiation when that 25%, or grand is what he's going to make, but he's still got 3 laying on the table as a person. Is that enough to say, hey, I want to pick that up off the table and I'm going to just take that and so bad? But think about it for the MSP. They don't really win on that contract till year 2, because to your point, there's 90 days of paying onboarding them, and there's still some adjustments that usually have to happen. Certainly year 2 is much more lucrative than year 1. I almost think 25% is a too favorable split. You want to really make them push for the 2 year. It's got to be a little bit more severe of a cut. But again, that's my opinion, only looking from the operational side of, man, I don't make a dime on this customer usually till the 4th or 5th month.
Yeah, and that is it's actually a great point. And what the conversation that I have with a lot of MSP owners, or that we have with a lot of MSP owners, is, look, if you're going to have a salesperson and you MSP owner, you are used to selling 1 year contracts because that's just what you've always done. We push pretty hard to get them to adjust that and change their mindset to, if you're going to a salesperson, you should really consider doing 2 years as your minimum.
Yeah.
And, inherently you get that owner who they push back. Well, I don't know if I can do a 2 year agreement in my market.
Yeah.
Like, okay, you can.
Yeah.
It's outside of their comfort zone. So, but to that point, we really discourage MSPs from giving a 1 year agreement just because of that. Like, it stands to reason that client will be with that MSP for anywhere from 5 to 8 years. But if they're not, then they lose their shirts, and that's not a good day.
And that's even, Brian, if they're going to do an evergreen contract, right? If you're going to do an evergreen contract, start the evergreen after the 2 years, not at the 1 year. Don't evergreen on 1 year, evergreen after 2, and then go to a 1 year automatic renewal, and put in that 5% inflationary clause automatically. But you can't work your way up from a deal, but you can, work down from a deal if you start at 2 years. And we suggest you start at 3, right? You start at 3 years and then work your way down. If you have to, but it really depends. It really depends on the client and what they're trying to do. And remember, the client, to your point about moving it down to maybe even 50% of that first year, you got to float that line a little bit, right? You don't want to have the rep say, well, I'm just not even going to follow up with that person because I'm literally not going to get enough money. I'm going to keep working on this whale. If the client looks at that deal and says, if this is a 1 year deal, I'm never going to make money on it until month 13, then the client pulls back, right? And he's got to look at it, or she's got to look at it and say, okay, that deal's just not going to work for me. But you still have to incentivize the rep to carrot for them and make them, chase after it. That was the reason why we did it at 75%. But I mean, it's open for interpretation for sure.
No, fair poke on that. Sometimes I think too much from the side of the business owner and less from the side of the sales rep, right?
Yeah, so, I totally hear you.
So there's some truth on that. And, another thing to take into consideration for a business owner too is, you want to get those multi-year contracts to make your exit someday easier too.
Yes.
The higher valuations come when they know the money's tied, so if you're running everything on evergreen or you're running everything on 1-year renewals, realistically, you won't get the goodwill money on those turns, or you won't get that extra turn on EBITDA because there's no guarantee that they're going to recapture.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It doesn't matter, if you have 100 clients and none of them are in a contract, they might still be paying you every month. But if they're all off contract, or you just sign them up month to month out of the gate, I mean, not for nothing, your company's not really worth that much. Like that company your client tech could have been with you for 5 years, but you can't prove that they're going to be there next month. And that's a problem when you go to exit.
So to kind of summarize here, you're really looking at a regionally based approach on what the rep pay is in that area. And then you're basically trying to start at the low point, but put a very achievable bogey to get them maybe a $5 to $6 grand kicker, which puts them towards the midpoint wherever they're regionally based. Yeah. And then you're basically saying, from a comp perspective, don't make this heavy mechanics. Yeah. 1 year or 2 year, you get a full month. 1 year, you get 75% of a month. Yeah. And that makes it very clear for somebody to know exactly what they're chasing after in that process. Yeah. So let's maybe shift gears and talk a little bit about sales expectations then. So now you know what the comp plan is, but where's your break even and what should you realistically be setting for a quota? And, and with that said, what is your ideal mix for base versus on target earnings? If somebody's getting paid 40,000, what do you want them to make to really make yourself satisfied on the other side, where you've made enough profit where carrying that person makes sense? So with that, I'll turn to you guys.
Yeah. So I'll start on that one. So we employ the model of 8641. For a rep to be on plan, they need to bring in 8 MSP MRR appointments per month. Right? 6 of those have to go to on-site technical meetings, 4 of those go to proposal, and 1 of them closes. So the rep at goal needs to close 1 MSP MRR deal per month. That's at the average size for what you've been historically bringing in. You can't all of a sudden, be bringing in $2,500 on average and ask the rep to bring in 5,000. Yeah. Right? You have never been able to do that. So why make the rep do that out of the gate? So that's how we started off. The rep needs to be able to bring in 1 deal per month at your average client size. And that needs to start really getting that pipeline full right around 6 months is when they will start to get the pipeline full. And the first deal should close around 9 months is when they should really start, being profitable, or not profitable, but breaking even, is brought in enough deals to cover their salary. And that's how you know that they're at their goal. And so it really depends. Their total valuation for that rep really depends on what your market is and what you're getting in your market for your MSP and what your average size deal is. So you do 1 deal times 12 months. That's their expected earnings on commission. Their bonus is already set, and their base is based on the tiered market that they're in.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, and it's we like to be able to sit back at that 6-month mark and say, okay, has this person closed anything? Ideally, you like to see something closed in month 5, right? Yep. Like that's what you're shooting for, and then you can really kind of sit back, close so far. What's in the pipeline? Is this person going to pay for themselves realistically in the next 2 to 3 months? And if the answer to that is yes, then you've got something to go from. You've got a foundation, and that person continues down being a salesperson for you. Yeah. If you're sitting back at the 6-month mark as an MSP owner and you're saying, well, shit, not only do I not have any deals, I'm not even getting any appointments, you're not going to be able to dig out of that. Yeah. Right. So as an MSP owner, if you have a salesperson on staff, you've got to be able to sit back, and you don't want to do it too early. This is where it's a game, right? It's a very fine line. You need to be able to give salespeople some rope, enough rope to be able to either climb to the top of the mountain or kind of hang themselves. And,
following that
Yeah.
8641 methodology there, obviously you don't want to get to the 6 month where the person's struggling to make appointments. So is there kind of a litmus you
Yes.
guys use in the first 90 days to say, does this guy even got skills?
Yeah. Well, we know that in the first month, right? So, we have, KPIs that we measure for that rep. But more importantly, we look at their COGS and we multiply out their COGS for their total cost of goods sold. We call a rep goods sold, and we look at everything that's associated with their costs. And if by month 4 is the first warning line, like if you're on the warning track, by the 4th month, gone through it, if they haven't sold anything, that's like, month 5 is the first month would be a verbal warning. Hey, what do we got going on here? Let's check it out. Let's dig in. Month 5 is a written warning, and month 6, that's what Timmy was talking about. You have to take a look at their pipeline and make sure it's working. So you should be seeing that rep get in their very first month, not the 8 appointments, right? But they should be getting 4. They should be able to get 1 appointment a week, a real appointment, right off the rip. They go through your training, they learn how you do everything. It's just the law of numbers, right? You should be able to talk to a person and be able to get an appointment a week after that first month.
Yeah.
Right. And that's how it all builds up. So, and it depends on what you have going on in your market, right? Are you guys a door knocker company? Are you a cold caller company? Are you emails? And then, but it really depends. But that's where you do that activity bonus system to make sure that they're doing the work.
And that's that's the focus on the hybrid rep that we that we tend to manage most often. There's also a segment of MSPs out there that they're principal led. They're fine being principal led. They want to be principal led, but they also want more leads. So they'll hire a lead generator, and that person, just like with a hybrid, we scan the area to see what a base salary would be. We have the same base plus bonus structure, but the difference is that lead generator, that appointment setter, they're generally not involved in the sales cycle as much, if at all. And in that case, if a deal closes because of an appointment that was set by that appointment setter or that lead generator, they'll get 25% of whatever that month is. And that's their commission. And that's kind of steady across the board, whether it's 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, et cetera.
Yeah.
It's a different kind of position.
And again, you usually see that in owner-led sales. So there's not a commission also going out to the sales rep. This is strictly going to the sales originator. For the owner. See times where there's an inside and a sales rep. So the company might be on the hook for 125% of the monthly revenue to comp everybody before diving in.
So what we do in that capacity is, if we call it a company generated lead, if the owner pays for a marketing program or the owner pays for a lead generator to supplement for that rep, then the sales rep loses 25% of their commission to pay for that lead generating process. And that's the sales funnel, right? Sales engine that gets them going.
That's an important point.
So it's not an additive, it's a cumulative, and it's just how it's being split. So realistically, you're saying to the sales rep, hey man, you're being given a bluebird. Go out there and do with it what you can. Exactly. And as a result of that, you're going to pay a little for the bluebird.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
Which is fair. And
you put some skin in the game.
Sales reps certainly aren't going to have an issue with that. Getting some money is better than no money, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And look, the prospecting side is the hardest part. Obtaining the appointment is the hardest part.
Yeah.
That's the most effort. So if somebody's doing it for you and your job is to go in and try and close it, it's not a bad day.
It's about 67 to 68% of their day, their week, their month is spent prospecting. Yeah. So if you give them a company generated lead, they're going to jump at it.
Yeah.
Perfect.
And if it is, to go back to what Rob said, another thing that we always recommend with any MSP that has a salesperson, if they get a company generated lead, referral, somebody hits a website, whatever that might be, and they give that lead to the salesperson and that lead closes, they get a 25% reduction in commission. They're generally speaking, that salesperson is there to hunt, and there was money put into a pot to make sure that that lead was generated that salesperson didn't do. So they have to take out of that commission in order to keep that other engine going. So there's multiple engines going at the same time.
Yeah.
So I think we've covered off on a little bit on compensation plan, how to split, what that compensation plan might look like. I think the only question still on the table is, what is the right target mix of base versus, OTE, expected earnings, right? And this assumes somebody's at commission. How are you guys seeing that split? And let's maybe use the example of that $40,000 sales rep that you guys were talking about, or if you want to pick another number, please feel free.
Yep. No, that's fine.
What number did you use, Brian?
So 40? Let's just say the base is 40. That region, 40 is the right price. You're going to give them the $500 kicker on the activity points. So, then they might be at 45, although, their skin in the game, that should be in low hanging bogey. So it's almost guaranteed money, right?
So it's close to like 50-50 there. So 40,000 plus 6,000 would be 46. And then commission using your typical MSP number is about $3,000 for monthly recurring revenue. So that's a little bit low for MSPs, but it's an easy to do by math. So you're looking at 46,000 for their total base comp plus their bonus, right? Which is, and then the commission, if they're hitting their numbers, is 36,000, right? So that's kind of where it would be.
I mean, first year, based on that 40,000 a year as a base, first year, you can probably expect in the 65 to 75 range. And then in the second year, the second year is really, it all should come together. We're looking from about month 6 on, ideally, we're looking for 1 closed deal per month. Does that always happen? Of course not. A lot of times they come in batches where you don't close anything for a couple months and you close 2 or 3. In year 2, it's kind of hard not to hit 6 figures if you do it right. Truly, it's hard to miss it. If you're doing it right, and you're generating the leads, it's damn near impossible to not get to either at 6 figures or just below 6 figures. And in this industry, it's about right. It's about right. Yeah. Now, the other thing I would say is where salespeople, and this is not just the MSP space, it's everywhere. The average salesperson stays at a position for 18 months. But the average salesperson doesn't start making 6 figures until they've been at that position for 3 years. So there's a disconnect between when people can have realistic earnings and when it actually happens. I think in the MSP space, the good thing is if you do it right, at least in our system, we feel like you've got a path to get to that 6 figures before that year.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Well, I think that covers off on really the compensation plan topic for the sales time. And it also kind of brings us towards the end of our time together today. So Rob, Tim, anything else you want to add around comp plans, ramp up times and things like that?
Yeah, I'll start it off there. Yeah, people always question us on why did these reps get a bonus. And I bet you Tim will bring up, like profit sharing on his side. But on the bonus, the reason that we don't give the rep the average salary in that territory and we drop it down to the low end and then add in this bonus is because closing 1 deal per month meant that you had 20 to 21 days of just getting beat up all month. So getting that monthly bonus for getting things that you did that was a positive effect on yourself and the company makes you feel better about yourself and gives you, it's a morale boost, right? But there's really nothing that the owner had to pay for it. It was just a way to get them back up to par and give them some, ways for them to feel good, right? You have some wins throughout the week. They got their 100 points today. That's a win, right? They may not have talked to many people, but they got their 100 points. At the end of the week, they got their 500 points, but they were only able to speak to 10 people. So it's kind of tough in that environment. So that was the reason that we did it that way. So that's what I would say on our side. Just like, that's a pretty big one, is that activity bonus and sticking to a point system.
Yeah, I agree. That's huge. And also to Rob's point, something that we run into is There's a large segment of MSPs out there, and there's nothing wrong with this, but they'll commission on gross profit. And that's where I fall back on what Sean Walsh always subscribes to. And I personally have yet to see a gross profit compensation plan where a salesperson can close a deal and they know like that what their commission is going to be. Which makes it too complicated. So if you're going down that road if you're about to hire a salesperson and you're primarily a gross profit shop, just know that that's going to be, it's not like it's impossible. It's totally doable, but the back end work to make sure that that person is getting compensated right.
While the accounting.
Oh my God. While at the same time having the rep not feel like they've been cheated. Promise you.
Well, I've seen companies using a assumed gross profit number like 30% as the way to do that. But then, of course, you hear the bitching when they end up at 26%.
Yeah.
And then on the other side, if they're doing 40% and don't make the adjustment, the reps losing too. But it's not super clean.
Yeah.
And it does go back to what you said earlier, Tim. Nobody can figure out their commission on the spot with those kind of plans.
Yeah.
It definitely seems that, and I was just doing some math in my head too, and saying that if the average MSP is doing 30%, profit, and we use that $3,000 a month example, at the end of the day, at the end of the year, the company should be making, what's that, roughly $9,000? No, about $12,000 in profit, I guess, at 30% of 36,000.
Yeah.
And they paid out $3,000 for it. So in year one, they're still making $9,000 off of that account. Year two, they make the whole 12, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
And the client's going to stay with you for an average of 5 to 8 years.
So it's
right. And the rep gets nothing on renewals.
Yeah.
The rep gets nothing on renewals.
Yeah.
So it's the way we do it.
Yeah.
All right.
We'll
awesome.
see.
Well, I think that's, that question comes up often. I think that at least gives people some food for thought. I'm sure people will vary. We'd love to hear in your comments how you think our comp plan that Rob and Tim laid out was awful, or if you think it's great, we'd love to hear that too.
I'm sure I'm going to get an email.
Well, I'm interested to see. We have a lot of listeners that are sales reps, and we have a lot of listeners that are owners, right? And I'd be curious to see, is there a divide that happens in the comments too?
Yeah.
But we really love your feedback. On this, all kidding aside, because these are the kind of things that we want to help drive as we move forward here with our show. And, we want to, really help folks that are struggling with these things, because it is tough to come up with a comp plan sometimes. And, help you make sense of it. So, thanks for listening. And I guess we'll catch you next week. Right, guys?
All right. Catch you on the next episode.
Thanks.